Up, future officers? My name is Tejas, and I welcome you all very, very warmly to class 12 of ILADE. Now, let us start with our first news, which is What's the Buzz? Okay, so What's the Buzz is the section where this news doesn't prominently appear in all the newspapers, but it still holds very high UPSC relevance. Now, what is this news about? It is about this person who was a legacy in himself. He is none other than M.S. Swaminathan. Now, why is the great M.S. Swaminathan in news? See, M.S. Swaminathan is celebrating his centenary birth anniversary. Centenary birth anniversary means 100th birth anniversary. Okay, so when was Sir born? He was born in August 7th, 1925. So till when are we celebrating it right now? We are celebrating it in August 7th, 2025. So how many years is that complete? It is completing 100 years. So MS Swaminathan ji, he lived almost for a very long life. He lived a very long, prosperous life for almost 98 years. He left us in 2023, very recently. So in 2024, he was even posthumously awarded the highest civilian award, which is the Bharat Ratna, right? So, why is he so important is very simple. He, MS Swaminathan ji, is considered as the father of Green Revolution. Okay. Father of Green Revolution, as in, he is that person who put food on our plates. Okay. He is that person who took India from a food deficit country to a food surplus situation. If I have to tell you a little bit of example, in 1964, food grain production was 12 million tons. How much was it? 12 million tons. But in 1970, this 12 million tons went up to 20 million tons. Okay. So 20 million tons is 8 million tons in just 6 years, which is incredible. How did he do this? He invented something called as the high yield variety of wheat grains. Okay, he along with Norman Borlaug, he was an American scientist. So he invented this high yield variety of wheat grains, which increased the agricultural productivity multifold. Okay, so because of all of these contributions which he has made, we have started an award on his 100th centenary anniversary. Okay, so the centenary anniversary, we've started something called International Award for Food and Peace. Okay, so this is started in MS Swaminathan ji's name itself, and this is very important. Now you can observe the name and the you can observe the order in which these two words are placed, food and peace, meaning to say that first any person should have food on his plate. After his food requirements are met only, we can start talking about other things like, let's say, love, compassion, peace. All of this will come the next thing. Very similar to Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Anyways, we move on. So there is this first person who ever got it this time. He is a Nigerian scientist. So, what is this Nigerian scientist's name? His name is Dr. Ademole Adele. Okay, so Dr. Ademole Adele is this person who has got the first ever MS Swaminathan International Award for Food and Peace. Right? What did he do? He invented some techniques in which agricultural productivity can be increased in Nigeria. Okay, so he has got this award. Right now, there is also a lot of talk on something called as Evergreen Revolution. Before I tell you about Evergreen Revolution and what Modi ji said about this, you have to understand about one more small concept. It is called as the Malthusian trap. Now, what is this Malthusian trap tell is that, see, our agricultural productivity has arithmetic progression. It will increase with arithmetic progression, meaning to say it will increase as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, something like this. And when we talk about growth, our population growth will go on increasing exponentially. Exponentially, as in 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, okay, 128, something like this. It will increase exponentially. So at one point of time, this agricultural productivity will not be able to sustain the population increase, which is happening exponentially. So people will end up dying if agricultural productivity is not met. So right now, the requirement and the demand is that there should be an evergreen revolution. And when I say evergreen revolution, what I mean is that there should be in such a way that we are able to sustain our population with our agricultural requirement. How do we do this? By adapting to the present challenges. Right now, the order of the day is that we need climate resilient agriculture. Climate resilient agriculture mainly can start with climate resilient seeds. This is what Modi ji tells in his speech in this particular function. So he tells that we need seeds, very similar to what in Kerala has something called as pokkali rice. Okay, so pokkali rice is this salt resistant variety of rice which will even grow in salty saline soil. Now, because of sea level increase and all soils will eventually face this saline ingress, that is having more salinity in its soil. Now, we need more resistant varieties like Pokkali rice, wherein it will be more climate resilient. This is only climate resilient agriculture. He goes on to tell that for evergreen revolution to be triggered, we need to do more. We need to focus on soil testing. We need to integrate technology like machine learning, artificial intelligence, etc. And ultimately, all of this will cater to climate justice. Okay. So, India has been very fortunate to have a lot of people like M.S. Swaminathan, E. Sridharan, the Metro Man of India, T.N. Sheshanji, he was an IAS officer who brought a lot of reforms in the election commission. So much so that I wouldn't be wrong in telling that the largest democratic exercise is conducted so peacefully to a very large extent because of his contributions. Okay, so there have been a lot of people who have come in and who have contributed in this way for India to be what it is. So we have to take a lot of pride in celebrating their anniversaries so that their contribution is not just remembered, but their spirit is also remembered. Okay. So let us move on to the next section. In this section, which is pre-competence, we discuss some prelims factual snippets which are helpful for you in your NCQ solving. So in our first news today, we have for the very first time something very unusual which has not happened in the history of mankind itself. What is that? It is basically where a whole country is migrating. Not one region, not one state, not one part of the country, but the entire country is migrating to another country. And this is not happening because of some political reasons or because of some war. This is happening because of climate change. Okay, so we see that the entire island of Tuvalu. Okay, now Tuvalu is an island which is in Central Pacific. Okay, in the Central Pacific island, we see that all of them are for the first time, okay, they are going to migrate because these islands are going to be submerged under the sea because sea level is increasing. Where are they migrating to? They are going to be migrating to Australia. Okay, so you all know that right now, uh, ice caps are, melting and the sea level is increasing. So, because of this, what is happening is that this Tuvalu is nine low-lying coral islands. Nine low-lying coral islands which are there. In that, two atolls have already been submerged. Okay, the remaining of them, seven of them are there. And in 2023, this particular president of this Tuvalu Island, he has gone and signed with Australia something called as Fallapili Agreement. Now, according to this Fallapili Agreement, Australia has agreed to give these people refuge, Tuvalu people refuge. They even believe that their culture should be not lost, so they have decided to create the first virtual digital island also. Now, according to this Fallapili agreement, Australia has decided to give them housing, it has decided to give them education, it has decided to give them employment, it has decided to give them healthcare facilities, and all these things. So, they're all going to be migrating in very large portions. How many people would be migrating? There would be, that's the total population of this Tuvalu Island itself is just 11,000. Okay, it is just 11,000. And this 11,000 people are going to be migrating there because this is at a very low altitude. Low altitude, as in this island itself comes at an average elevation which is just 2 meters above the sea level. Okay, just 2 meters above the sea level. So you can understand that this island would be readily getting submerged. But what we have to understand more importantly is that Tuvalu will become a reminder for all of us that climate change is not something which we keep talking about, and it is not some distant threat which will come maybe some 100 years or 200 years. It is something which is a stark reality which people of today are facing. Okay, and if we do not act fast, this can be the situation for most of them tomorrow, right? In fact, the low-lying states of which are in the south of USA are also at a threat to being submerged. They are also in very low-lying areas, especially areas of Texas, Florida, okay, Alabama, these states, right? Anyways, the next particular news is that Himachal Pradesh is to host its first ever eco-friendly tribal festival in 2025. Where is this being hosted? This is being hosted in Lahore and Spiti. Okay, wherein not just their natural eco beauty, but also their cultural pride will also be showcased. So this is going to be organized by the district administration of Himachal Pradesh in Lahore and Spiti Valley, and it is going to be supported by Ministry of Tribal Affairs. Okay, so this is the news over here. Very, very important. Next, we see the a news about this particular blue sheep, you call it. It is very close to the sheep family. It's called as Nilgiri Tar. So Nilgiri Tar is considered as Tamil Nadu's state animal. Tamil Nadu's state animal. Now, uh, in the IUCN status, it is endangered. Okay, it is endangered. So now, suddenly we see that there has been a surge in Nilgiri Tar's population. It has recorded a sizable population increase, right? About 1,303 individuals are seen in 14 division forests, okay, of Tamil Nadu. And if you even count Kerala, in Kerala you have 1,352 Nilgiri Tars in Kerala. So overall, it would add up to 2,655 of these total species, which is a sizable increase in its population. Okay. Next, we come to this particular news wherein we are talking about biochar's role in India's emerging market. Very soon, India is going to be launching its own carbon market in which we are going to be, uh, trading our carbon credits, that is, our certified emission reduction units. Okay. But we see that we have not yet found a very plausible solution. In this, all these solutions which could, list up, one of this solution is very, very prominent. What is this solution? It is called as biochar. Now, this biochar, what is this biochar, sir? You might ask. See, biochar is the agricultural residue. Okay, it is the agricultural residue which is left behind after the plants, after that harvest is then burned. Okay, after it is burned. And then, usually, what will happen? This residue which is there, it can be used as fertilizer. It can be used as a fertilizer. So, you must all understand that right now, India is already generating about 600 million metric tons of agricultural residue. 600 million metric tons of agricultural residue. Okay. Along with this, there is 60 million tons of municipal solid waste. Okay. So this municipal solid waste is there and agricultural residue is there. What happens to this? Usually it is thrown away in some dumping yard and it is all burned. So after it is burnt, all of this goes to waste. Okay. But then you can make something called as biochar out of the same agricultural residue and the same municipal waste. Now, this agricultural residue can be used as fertilizers. Along with that, this also has a huge potential for carbon sequestration. That is to trap the carbon inside the. Okay, isn't this like a wonderful solution? It is an example of something called as waste to energy. Okay, it is where we convert waste to energy and we are converting our problem into a solution. We are converting our challenge into a solution, right? So this becomes a very prominent example. But one more thing is that there is some concerns. What is that concern? Along with it trapping a lot of carbon dioxide, it is also known to release some ecotoxicity. Okay, now scientists have to try to find a way to reduce the ecotoxicity and then go ahead with its use. Right? Next, we have WHO. Okay, in this news, WHO it classifies hepatitis D as cancer causing. Now, you know that hepatitis B, C, D, everything, it is all relating to liver damage. Okay. So in usually what happens is some liver infection will happen and liver inflammation will happen. Usually during hepatitis B, C, D, everything. In that hepatitis D is right now, what is this? This is basically a viral infection happens. And because of this, WHO has gone on to say that BCD strains of hepatitis, it is the most dangerous. There are totally five strains, A, B, C, D, E. In that, B, C, D are the most dangerous, says WHO. Okay. And they go on to say that about 300 million people live with this chronic hepatitis. Okay. They all have chronic hepatitis. And about 1.3 million of them die each year. Is this clear? Right. So this completes this section wherein we are discussing about this prelims factual. Now let's go on to the next section. Now in our mains analysis, we are discussing a very, very important topic, which is something which is making the headlines almost every day because Donald Trump has suddenly started to have a very, very ad hoc behavior. Not that it was not there before, but it has suddenly increased even more. So what is happening right now is that India is facing a 50% tariff, which is actually a US sanction in disguise. Okay, they're not telling sanctions word directly, but they are imposing a very, very heavy tariff on us. Why? What is the reason? Initially, only they had told that India is imposing a lot of tariffs. We are the tariff king of the world. We are the tariff Maharaja of the world. So, US is also going to impose a reciprocal tariff of 25%. Okay, now that they have gone on to cite a new reason. Okay, this August 7th, they have told that they are going to increase 25% more from the existing 25% tariff. That would make it 50% tariff. You know what was the reason they stated? They told that we are buying Russian oil, okay, at a very cheap price, and we are funding the war of Russia and Ukraine, along with other countries like Brazil and China. Okay, so having 50% reduction, I mean, having a 50% rate on us, see, it's not like a new phenomena that we just started buying oil. We have been buying cheap oil from Russia for the last 3 years. But suddenly, US has just woken up and read the newspaper, and they are going on to tell that we should not purchase so much oil, and they are going to put all these tariffs and these penalties on us. Now, the authorities, our authorities in the Ministry of External Affairs, in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they told that this is extremely unjust, this is unfair, this is unwarranted. It is not at all required. Okay, but they have gone on to do all of this. Now, because these tariffs are put on India, it can significantly have some impacts on us. Now, there is a very concerning point, and I'll tell you why. See, India, we have a trade surplus with USA. And when I tell you a trade surplus, you might ask, sir, how much do we have a trade surplus with USA? We have about $45 billion of trade surplus, which is a very big trade surplus given our bilateral ties. See, usually with most of the countries, we have a trade deficit only, but with US, we have a trade surplus. And our total bilateral trade, it amounts to a whopping $212 billion approximately. $212 billion. Very, very big trade. In that, $45 billion is to the favor of India. Now, US obviously does not like this, and under that pretext, it is suddenly making all these tariff changes. Now that this is very imminent given Donald Trump's administration, and we are suffering the wrath, what could be the possible impacts or what could be the possible consequences of these, so-called sanctions? The first one is the export decline. Export decline, as in, see, whatever goods and merchandise we send from India to USA, it could overall, because of these tariffs which are being imposed on India, okay, from USA, the overall merchandise and the exports which we are sending to USA could reduce by 25%. Or why is this 25% reduction? Because of the 25% of tariffs they have put. So you can remember this number also very easily. 25% reduction in exports because of 25% in tariffs. Next one is the GDP growth rate. When I talk about this GDP growth rate, this tariff, it could lower our GDP growth by about 0.6%. Okay, by 0.6 percent points, it could reduce our total GDP, and it could exceed the overall zero point 0.6 points by a base rate of about 6.5%. Okay. Next one is the current account deficit. When we talk about current account deficit, see, already India had a very big current account deficit. It had 0.6% current account deficit. Now, it will go on to around 1.15% of the current account deficit. Very, very concerning. Okay, even our oil imports would become even more costlier, and it would push the deficits even more higher, right? Next one, fourth one, is the rupee depreciation. When I tell you about the rupee depreciation, usually we suffer a very big disadvantage because most of the thing, even though there is this concept of rear, near, and all, most of the time when we compare any currency, we compare it to the dollar. So our rupee would weaken to around 87.5 rupees, okay, after the tariff announcement. So currency depreciation means imports will become expensive. Imports will become expensive. Okay, always remember this small mnemonic called as die. Die means wherever there is depreciation, imports will become expensive. Okay, so you can just remember this. And usually this also adds inflation. So inflationary pressure will increase, inflation will increase. Okay. And also, when we talk about this, we also have to talk about a global policy precedent which will be set because of US. So, using tariffs, it can influence another nation's policy, which basically goes against so many principles. It goes against, like, let's say, free and fair trade principles. It goes against the whole concept of sovereignty. Okay, it's almost like you're threatening people that you do what I'm telling, or else I will be imposing this particular thing. Aren't we supposed to act in our own national interest on what suits us? But no, US is using this very bullying attitude, get what it wants out of all the other countries. Okay, so this continued use of this tariffs and such measures, it could overall destabilize global trade itself. Okay, posing a threat to liberalization, it could pose a threat to globalization as a whole, right? So, having said this, what are the measures which are available before India? The first thing, what can we do? US is anyways doing this to us. What can we do? We can, first thing is negotiate with US itself. Okay, and when I'm telling you negotiate with US, the Indian government, it can use this window before the trade deal is finalized, and it can seek some kind of tariff relief. Okay, at least to sensitive sectors like, let's say, agriculture, okay, and allied activities, and then MSMEs. At least these sectors where the poorest of the poor people there there, at least that sector should not be hurt too much. Okay. Next, second one is you highlight the inequality. So India can present a penal levy in such a way that it is discriminatory. Okay, it can point out that so many other nations also import more from Russia. Like, for example, European Union, it buys more gas than what India takes. Okay, but European Unions have not imposed all the sanctions. In fact, so much so that some critical minerals US itself is buying, like, for example, some uranium, okay, palladium, some minerals like that, US itself is buying Russia. So what is this logic and what is this justice? Where you yourself are buying, Europe is buying, for them there is no sanctions, and suddenly after 3 years, you wake up and you tell that India is buying oil, so we are going to put sanctions, right? Next one is that you diversify your export markets. all these problems, it arises when you are dependent only on one country like US. Okay, so even though it is challenging in the short term, if you diversify, eventually such kind of problems, you will not be the person under the axe. Okay. Fourth one is you review and reduce your import tariffs. So you consider something called as Atmanirbhar Bharat, wherein you yourself go ahead with indigenous production. Okay. So with this, what will happen is that authorities uh, will generally consider lowering the tariffs on imports, and this will basically that supply inputs which are there to export production. This will be considered. Okay, so this will overall have a reducing impact on the negative impacts of the high inputs. Okay. Then the last one is that you work with other nations. Already, India is taking a lot of steps in this regard. So one thing it can go and do is strengthen its ties with Russia, which it's already doing. It is looking to expand to other, things like critical minerals, etc. We are planning to buy from Russia. And apart from that, we are also strengthening our ties with China, where it can be seen that we are going to be participating in the SCO summit and have and try establishing close ties with China as well. Okay. Also, Brazil has also come and it is also extending its support to be part of this particular union. Anyways, so all this apart, we also have to go and contest. If a lot of countries agree, we can go and change the system in which the WTO works. Okay, or try to develop a new system. So, having said all this, what could be the conclusion to this? The immediate impact of the tariffs on the growth rate of India may be managed, but the continuation of this kind of a trade regime will not be in the interest of all the countries, including US and India. So, both countries' authorities, we have to spread very this thing, and US should maintain some kind of stability in its whole policy. So this whole thing is very important. Moving on to the last component, which is ethics and essay valuation. Today we are discussing something which is very commonly used, but we will be trying to discuss, for the benefit of those who do not know, something called as Gandhiji's talisman. Now, what is this talisman, first of all? It is like this locket which is there. Okay, so this locket will usually have some kind of a symbolism, it will have usually some kind of a message. So, Gandhiji, he tells that whenever you are in a dilemma about making a decision, use this particular message, and you will see that all your doubts or these dilemmas will start melting away. So, what exactly will this be told? This can be highly used in ethics and essay. So what it tells is that Gandhiji tells that I will give you a talisman whenever you are in doubt, and when yourself has become too much within you, apply the following test. Recall the face of the poorest and the weakest man whom you may have seen and ask yourself if the step that you contemplate is going to be of any use to him. Will he gain anything by it? Will it restore him to a control over his own life and destiny? In other words, will it lead to Swaraj for the hungry and spiritually starving millions? And then you will find all your doubts will start melting away. Okay, so basically, what this means is that when you feel that yourself has become too much in you, and when you're not able to take a decision, just recall the face of the most poorest of the poorest person you have seen, and you see that the decision which you are going to take will be of any use or benefit to him. If that is really of some use, then you will see that your doubts will start melting away. Okay, doubts will be cleared. Okay, so with this, I will just give you guys a small analogy so that you will be able to relate to this much better in the form of a small story. Let's say IAS officer. Okay, there is an IAS officer called as Ananya. Okay, just a random name, Ananya. So now Ananya, IAS officer Ananya, she is posted in a drought hit village. Okay, to counter this drought hit problem, okay, her advisors, her PWD team, they give two proposals to Ananya ji. So, what is that two proposal? The first proposal is a bridge. Now, this bridge will connect village to markets. Okay, so when it connects village to markets, it will help boost the GDP of that particular area. Okay, seems like a highly economical project. Second one is a small rural hospital, which is there. Now, the small rural hospital, which is there in a small tribal hamlet, It will definitely save life, but it will not lead to any visible development. Visible development is that development will not seem to be done, but it will definitely create a lot of impact on those small tribal hamlets. So, what does Ananya tell? What does IAS officer Ananya G tell? She tells that you go on and please pick the bridge. Why will you have to pick the bridge? Because it is what the CM wants for election. He wants more votes. He wants this to be done. So you please go ahead and pick this. But that night, Ananya ji, she recollects Gandhiji's talisman, which is over here. So when Gandhiji's talisman is recollected, she starts asking that will either project help the weakest? The landless tribal women, they walk for 10 kilometers for their childbirth. So if I compare both of them, then this rural hospital is what is more needed, right? So what she does is that she then goes on the next day and she diverts all the funds to the hospital, which is there. Okay, so hospital is picked. And in the meanwhile, she arranges for a smaller footbridge so that there also purpose is served. And here also people are getting benefited. Okay, so what this particular diversion which is there, what would be the outcome for this? The outcome is that one short term is some political backlash might be there, right? Some political backlash. But in the long term, what would happen? Some maternal mortality, which is there, that is going to drop. It is going to help save so many, pregnant ladies' lives. The bridge can be later built under some scheme like MG Narega also, that is Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, right? So here you have to start analyzing about so much of UPSC relevance also here. Like, for example, the first thing which Ananya has displayed through following Gandhiji's talisman is ethical governance, right? She has been an example of ethical governance. That is, whenever there was a conflict between public service values versus political pressure, she yielded to public service values. Second one was that she catered to inclusive development. Okay, so she catered to inclusive development where the last of the last. Okay, so even they were also taken care of. This is in consonance with SBG 3, which talks about health. Next, the third thing is administrative courage. She has gone on to display administrative courage. Why can she display administrative courage? Because she has constitutional protection under Article 311. That is, she cannot be just removed for doing something good to the society. She's protected by the Constitution. Under which article? Under Article 311. So you see that Gandhiji's talisman can be brought about to justify all the correct decisions which you take in favor of the most poorest of the people, in favor of the most vulnerable of the people. It also goes on to display compassion to the weaker sections as well. So this is something which you can highly use in your ethics and essay, right? So we come to an end to today's session. I hope that all the information which you learned today was very useful and it will come in very handy when you write your examinations. Until then, until next time, this is Tejas signing off, and I'll see you all in the next episode of I Lead.